Why did German SS officers inspect occupied Yugoslavia? They evaluated new regional infrastructure. Spring 1941. It was Jasenovac. SS vehicles approached the main perimeter gates. Tires crunched on the gravel. Inspectors stepped onto the dirt. They surveyed the extermination zones. German protocols dictated standardized procedures. The Reich optimized death logistics. Jasenovac operated on raw manual labor. Guards wielded specialized curved blades. They sliced throats in the open. Wire cutters snapped. A sharp metallic click echoed constantly. Noses fell. Ears dropped. Blood soaked the soil. Executioners dragged victims to the edge. The Sava River absorbed the bodies. Furnaces burned human flesh alive. Boiling cauldrons processed the remains. German delegates documented these physical tactics. They recoiled. Official reports classified the site pathological. The violence exceeded their operational parameters. The Third Reich preferred chemical efficiency. This facility favored intimate physical slaughter. Yugoslavia contained roughly 15 million citizens. Jasenovac was a demographic choke point. It filtered out targeted ethnic groups. The regional map required systemic clearing. 55 civilians hung from street lamps. The camp architect demanded public visibility. He implemented rapid terror operations. Bodies dangled in broad daylight. This demonstrated immediate local control. His name was Vjekoslav Luburić. He was an ex-convict from Herzegovina. He personally executed inmates during tours. He calibrated the manual killing process. His own end arrived much later. Assassins found him. He hid in rural Spain. They used a heavy hammer. Attackers shattered his skull. He suffocated under a wooden bed. When the gates of this Balkan eradication center first opened to receive its primary human cargo, the commandant in charge of the entire operation was exactly 27. 10 years of military training shaped future cadres in Hungarian camps. The operational methods deployed at Jasenovac were engineered far from the Balkans. At 17, following a 5-month prison term in 1931 for embezzlement, he crossed the border. He entered Janka Pusta. This Hungarian facility was a staging ground for the Ustasha movement. Rome financed this network. Mussolini required a geopolitical proxy. Italy funded operations to destabilize Yugoslav borders and project power across the Adriatic Sea. Radical violence was not spontaneous. Foreign governments systematically cultivated these units. Recruits drilled daily. They prepared to dismantle a state. They waited for a trigger. On September 1, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. What triggered Croatian nationalist cells? The collapse of the empire and the redrawing of territories. Before Italian funds sponsored Hungarian training camps, old European geopolitics had to fail. March 6, 1914, the village of Humac. The Austro-Hungarian Empire controlled the region. The state spanned 600,000 square kilometers, but internal fractures deepened. Poverty surged. Ethnic divisions widened. Vjekoslav was born into this collapsing system. He was 4 years old. His father died. A Serbian police officer shot him. He was smuggling tobacco. Medical help was unavailable. He bled out quickly. Shortly after, his sister Olga committed suicide. She drowned herself in a local river. A forced marriage ban dictated her choice. These were not merely personal tragedies. They represented symptoms of geopolitical breakdown. The local violence mirrored state collapse. War ended. The Austro-Hungarian state dissolved completely. Imperial authority vanished. Humac was forcefully absorbed into a newly engineered state. The kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes emerged. This new framework merged deeply hostile demographic groups. A single political center attempted to control multiple rival ethnicities. The Serbian royal house of Karađorđević seized total power. They dictated policy from Belgrade. For Belgrade, creating the kingdom meant unification. For Croatian factions, it meant occupation under a different flag. Borders shifted. How long did it take to militarily dismantle the Yugoslav state? Exactly 11 days. The events of September 1939 shifted the paradigm. The subsequent German thrust into Yugoslavia turned theoretical radicalism into a state apparatus primed for immediate clearing. On the 27th of March, 1941, Hitler issued an invasion order. The assault began on the 6th of April. Armored vehicles crossed the Yugoslav border from multiple directions. The heavy rumble of tank treads echoed across the frontier. Forces from Germany, Italy, Hungary, and Bulgaria struck simultaneously. By the 17th of April, the Yugoslav army surrendered. The territory fractured and the independent state of Croatia emerged. The Ustash took control. They faced a demographic reality of 2 million Serbs. This group formed 30% of the population. The government announced its agenda: 1/3 killed, 1/3 deported, 1/3 forcibly converted to Catholicism. This quota policy would soon dictate the daily reality at Jasenovac. The math meant the physical elimination of nearly 700,000 people under official state directive. Vjekoslav Luburić crossed the border illegally in April 1941. Why establish 5 camp zones 96 kilometers from Zagreb? To create sovereign infrastructure for demographic clearing. May 1941, construction started along the Sava River. The river stretches almost 1,000 kilometers. Engineers surveyed the marshland. They laid out the Jasenovac complex. 5 distinct subcamps. 96 kilometers meant operational proximity. Zagreb was the capital. State officials could commute easily. They conducted regular site inspections. The government maintained tight oversight. September 1941, the commandant traveled to Germany, a 10-day deployment. He entered Sachsenhausen. The facility stood near Berlin. It opened in 1936. He studied the guard towers. He observed the execution protocols. He returned with administrative blueprints. But Jasenovac required localized solutions. The administration tested modern extermination. They deployed gas vans. They failed. Engineers built a gas chamber. It stood at the Stara Gradiška subcamp. It operated for mere months. Toxic gas required complex imports. Bullets cost state funds. Ammunition expenditure generated paper trails. Bureaucrats demanded strict accounting. The leadership rejected this expense. They abandoned chemical methods. They decentralized the killings. Guards received new equipment: sledgehammers, heavy wood-splitting axes, wooden mallets, specially designed throat-cutting knives. The process became entirely manual. Physical contact was mandatory. The state sanctioned close-range slaughter. 77,000 to 99,000 dead. Over 20,000 were children. The death toll climbed daily. Guards forced inmates to dig graves. Men dragged corpses by hand. They buried their own brothers. Camp authorities weaponized the rations. Kitchen staff altered the food supply. Caustic lye tainted the meals. Sodium hydroxide destroys organic tissue. Women consume the poisoned bowls. The chemical burned their throats. Internal bleeding started immediately. Death arrived slowly. The camp absorbed Serbs. It absorbed Roma. Political opponents vanished. Executions occurred without paperwork. The Sava River swallowed bodies. Guards drowned prisoners in the currents. Some burned in brick furnaces. Jasenovac maintained external logistical ties. The railway network connected to Europe. The administration approved international transfers. Guards loaded the rail cars. 7,000 Jewish prisoners were transported from the camp network directly to the holding facilities at Auschwitz. 1,800 Serbs were murdered in the Lika region by late July 1941. The manual liquidation technology intended for Jasenovac underwent testing earlier that spring in the village of Veljan. Following a border crossing in April 1941, Vjekoslav Luburić deployed to the area on May 6. His directive demanded the detention of 400 Serbian men. These detainees represented nearly the entire able-bodied male demographic of a standard rural settlement. On May 9, the militia transferred the captured population to the municipality of Blagoć. A local elementary school building stood nearby. Constructed for primary education, It became the active site for nocturnal liquidations. The operation proceeded without standard-issue firearms. Personnel utilized knives and blunt instruments to maintain necessary operational silence. This methodology allowed administrators to evaluate execution protocols prior to wider implementation. Units processed the prisoners methodically throughout the night, without consuming ammunition. This tactical approach established the precise manual template subsequently standardized across the national camp network. Witnesses observed the commander exiting the perimeter at dawn with heavy contamination on his uniform. Luburić washed the blood from his hands at a nearby water well. How did the camp commander evaluate internal guard efficiency? Through direct participation in executions during every routine inspection. The manual liquidation protocols tested in Belgium and standardized in Jasenovac required strict executive oversight. 2 to 3 audits occurred every month. The commander walked the perimeter. He reviewed operational metrics. He established a baseline requirement to execute at least one detained individual per visit by his own hand. The cold barrel of a revolver pressed tight against a prisoner's skull during these checks. He held the weapon steady. Sometimes he pulled the trigger. Sometimes he simply walked away. He promoted personnel who demonstrated maximum lethality during his tours. German military observers documented this behavior. Liaison officers from the Reich Security Main Office filed internal reports. They analyzed these deviations from standard extermination procedures. Bureaucrats formally classified his psychological profile as unstable and pathological. Administrators of the Reich death camps viewed his direct physical involvement as a severe managerial defect. February 1945 arrived. How did Yugoslav intelligence, UDBA, eliminate targets in Falange, Spain? By infiltrating agents into the inner circle. On April 20, 1969, UDBA finalized a complex operation in Spain. 24 years after the regime collapsed, the target faced liquidation. The target was 55 years old. He resided in Carcassonne. Carcassonne is a small town near Valencia. UDBA systematically tracked political immigrants. They deployed assets globally. State security implemented an extrajudicial liquidation program across borders. The protocol mirrored Israeli Mossad operations throughout Europe. Both agencies hunted fugitive war criminals abroad. Assassins integrated into target networks. Access was complete. Ilya Stanek executed the protocol. He was the target's godson. He served UDBA. The infiltration phase ended. Execution began. A handler supplied the toxin. Stanek prepared morning coffee. He dissolved the chemical agent. The target ingested the liquid. The dosage proved insufficient. Toxicity levels failed to cause immediate cardiac arrest. Hours passed. The target felt severe physical distress. He moved to the kitchen. He leaned over the ceramic sink. He started vomiting violently. Stanek exited the room. He secured a heavy steel hammer. He re-entered the kitchen. The target waited. Stanek swung the weapon. The metal head struck bone. A sharp crack echoed. The skull fractured upon impact. The man collapsed. Stanek locked the front door. He prevented external interference. He delivered a second strike. He crushed the cranium further. Stanek concealed the physical evidence. He wrapped the body in thick blankets. He dragged it by the feet. He shoved the mass under a bedroom bed. The agent immediately evacuated the premises. He secured his extraction route. He crossed the border into France. Local police recorded the crime scene the next morning. The target's teenage son found the remains. Investigators photographed the bloodstains. The subsequent autopsy report documented the precise physiological failure. The blunt force trauma did not terminate neural activity. The subject survived the initial cranial fractures. He lay immobilized beneath the bed frame. He slowly suffocated without the ability to move, drowning in his own pooling blood. Why did Madrid ignore the extradition requests? The host government recognized the independent state of Croatia during the war, laying groundwork for post-war cooperation. State infrastructure provided a secure sanctuary for the target. By 1949, The government of Francisco Franco became a primary base for evasion routes, sheltering thousands of collaborators. The legalization process operated through military networks, allowing him to enter utilizing the forged identity of Maximilian Soldo. A brief detention ended through the intervention of Agustin Muñoz Grandes, former commander of the Spanish Blue Division. This guaranteed his total immunity. The state relocated him to Carcaixent, a municipality near Valencia. On paper, he maintained the quiet existence of a provincial resident. In reality, he coordinated radical networks under the explicit protection of a high-ranking general. By 1953, he married Isabella Hernández, further embedding himself into the local demography. He remained untouchable. The scent of fresh printing ink filled his facilities. Protected by the government, he continuously printed and distributed nationalist materials for 20 years. Why deploy a tribunal inside a doomed city? In February 1945, the command attempted to eliminate the communist underground before the inevitable surrender of Sarajevo. The underlying cause of the subsequent 20-year hunt was this exact terror infrastructure, established during the final military retreat. Operations began with a single property. Commander Luburić requisitioned a private villa in the city center. His units installed interrogation equipment in the basement. They secured the perimeter. Local residents quickly named the site the House of Terror. The local command expanded the site into a system of summary executions. Luburić formalized the structure as the Criminal War Court of Commander Luburić. Processing arrests became a daily procedure. Charges included treason and minor disciplinary offenses. Sentences were executed immediately. Implementing tribunals in collapsing urban zones was a standard procedure for retreating Axis forces, designed to clear their rear echelons. The methods remained entirely physical. Guards bound prisoners' arms, pulled them between their legs, and locked them with steel rods. Detainees were suspended upside down for beatings. Luburić summoned relatives to the headquarters. He detailed the exact mechanics of the torture to the families. The campaign peaked during the night of March 27th to March 28th, 1945. Units executed 55 residents in the city center. The bodies were hanged from trees and street lamps along the main avenues. Heavy wooden placards weighed down their necks. The painted text read a tribute to Ante Pavelic. The corpses remained on display. Patrols fired at anyone attempting to cut the ropes. Investigators later exhumed multiple bodies from the villa's backyard, including children. They identified Halid Nazecic. His remains exhibited extensive burns from boiling water. The total collapse of this local command structure occurred when partisan units liberated Sarajevo on April 6, 1945. 99,000 murdered humans. 55 hanging corpses in Sarajevo marked only the final operational phase. This staggering death toll equaled total demographic annihilation. An entire average European city erased from the map permanently. The architect escaped. He secured asylum. He raised a new family. He spent 20 years in Spain, safe under sunny Mediterranean skies. Justice bypassed standard international courts. Tribunals never convened. Charges never materialized. Retribution bypassed state judicial frameworks. Instead, an operative approached. His own godson carried a heavy hammer. He struck the primary target. The target fell. The operation concluded. Thick, dark blood pooled on the ceramic tiles. The mastermind behind 99,000 executions lay alone on his Spanish kitchen floor, quietly choking on his own blood.